Welcome everyone to Spotlight. Today we're joined by Troy Hincho, who is Head of Commercial of Electrolux Australia. First of all, Troy, thank you for joining us, mate.
My pleasure, Marty. Good to catch up.
Yeah, good stuff. And Troy, so you and I have known each other for a few years now, and we've spent a lot of coffees, a lot of time together talking about strategy, team planning, execution, the importance of even dynamics of team and technology. And I was really excited to get you on Spotlight because I'd love for the audience to hear your take on how important it is to actually drive a plan forward, to have a clear plan, drive it forward, and also share, you share with us some of the challenges you've seen and maybe help the audience understand some of the areas that you've experienced over time as well that we can take away and embed into our daily lives as we look to drive our own businesses forward. So sure. I'll start off just talking about the clarity of a plan. Can you share with us how important that is and how you approach it in your business?
Yeah, sure. And look, I guess this was reinforced to me when I sort of transitioned from startup businesses to being part of a corporate. So commercial for us in Australia is a decent sized business, but within a $1.2 billion local business and a $21 billion US business globally, it's a small business, right? So one of the sort of benefits ahead of being in small business is that the simplicity of the plan is acute. Tracking towards it's acute. Whether you're going to line up with that execution or not is just acutely clear. And when I came into a bigger organisation, probably one of the biggest challenges I had was keeping things simple. First reason was because I assumed that things had to be more sophisticated. So I sort of moved down that track. But now, and I get reinforced with some of the new senior managers that have come into the businesses recently, simplicity is key. Simple is not easy. Ask anybody that's involved in product design or product development to give something to a consumer that's really simple is mastery, So I guess I've had the benefit of enjoying the effectiveness of a simple plan in play, and also on a bad day, really moved away from simplicity and just made things incredibly hard for myself and the people around me. Now, not only do I lose personal momentum, but the broader organisation, which is far more important, loses momentum and productivity.
Yeah, I love that. So you're probably one of the most knowledgeable and disciplined people I've spoken to when it comes to strategy. And it's interesting you use this word simple, because it's everything that we actually stand for at stratapp is how do we keep it simple, how do we easily align it, and then how do we enable a simple framework that everyone can just get down to the work and everyone drives in towards the same direction.
Yep.
So just work through that framework with me on simple. What are some of the things that you're doing and taking the plan and then layer it across the organisation and your teams?
Well, I guess what it is now, and I'll make this acutely clear, on a good day, I get this right. But I have my fair share of bad days, right? A simple plan and simple strategy and simple execution for me is just really about breaking it down to the single most fundamental things that we need to be focused on, making sure the resources you've got, whether they're sort of directly involved or indirectly as far as sort of sponsors or senior stakeholders, totally understand why we're doing something. Because while from my position I might have a very clear idea of why I'm going about it, those other senior enablers around me can see things in the fringes and they can line things up before we even get there. But unless that plan is simple, no one really digests it. Not only that, the more sophisticated I've seen plans presented, people attach things to it that really don't benefit it in any way, shape or form. The other thing was simple, and I've learned this repeatedly and had to be reminded. If someone can explain something to you simply, they really understand it. It's something that we do quite a bit of work where you hear someone explain something really quite complex, whether it's at a global, a regional, or local level, and you just go, that person really understands this, So with simplicity, it means that I've got focus, because 50% of strategy or focus or planning is about deciding deliberately what you're not going to do. And a lot of people forget that because they think it's just about piling more stuff on. Which is fine in fits and starts, but it's not sustainable. And let's say if you're leading a team and you're good at that environment and your team aren't, or elements of it aren't, you're going to do some real damage. you know.
Yeah.
So the other part of simplicity for me is just around alignment. Does everyone understand where we're going? Has everyone got the tools they need to do it? And then once the environment's set up, it's actually giving those guys and ladies space to fulfill that.
Yes.
Because if it's simple, that means they've got space to use their own professional initiative. And when people are using their own initiative, they're far more engaged.
Yeah. I love it.
And then just visibility, right? And you know this because I'm a tragic, and I remember having a coffee with you at Singapore Airport after doing the red eye out of Brisbane to Asia.
Yeah.
And I was using a laminated A4 sheets of
I
person.
remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
And one thing, because I don't have a massive bedrock of formal education, I've done a lot of reading, and I have always made sure I've had external mentors. And I tend to gravitate towards sports mentors and inspiration from sporting stories and books, and also military stuff. And one of the things that really landed on me was when they were reviewing a whole bunch of generals from history. And this particular professor from, I think it was from MIT over in the States, would look at the leadership adolescence of these senior military sort of leaders, and what that military adolescence was who are their parents as they come into this environment, who are they taking their leadership from, who are they learning from. And I guess my adolescence as I made my way through my career has tended to hover around books.
Yeah.
You know, I was very lucky that my father had a massive library full of Peter Drucker books. So, you know, and I look at books and I measure them based on how many times I buy them for other people. Peter Drucker, The Practice of Management, 1968, you cannot go past it.
Yeah.
It's evergreen, you know. So if I line those up, we've got Peter Drucker, Practice of Management, which is very, very simple and was perfect for me to digest it at the time. And as far as me trying to share with other people that I might be working with or working around, this is why I think this way, the easiest way for me to do it is to expose people to a bit of Drucker.
Yes,
so I hardcore down management by objectives. And I found that sort of removed a lot of sort of detritus and stuff from my kind of my thinking. Then, you know, you look at books like Good Strategy, Bad Strategy, and you start realizing, well, a number's not a strategy, right? And this is one of the things I found in startups. Again, on a good day, your strategy is, you know, because your value proposition to the market's so, you know, diamond hard. Like, we exist to do this. This is how we beat everybody else, and it's just driven hard every day. Again, it's something as you get bigger and bigger organisations, that can be diluted sometimes if you're not careful. But then understanding, well, a number is not a strategy. And in some startups, you can exist for a certain amount of time on that number, because, you know, we don't hit that number Thursday, we might not be around next Thursday, you know. And then Vern Harnish, who wrote a book called Rockefeller Habits about, you know, Rockefeller himself, and his big things, one of the simplest things that he had was just dashboards everywhere. Once you know what you're going for, once you know how you're going to measure it, once you've got the ability to measure it consistently, even if it's not 100% accurate, but the inaccuracy is consistent. Dashboards everywhere. So I kind of get this very clear on a good day. Clear objective. What's the objective I'm trying to, you know, deliver? What's my strategy? So not what's a number, what's my strategy to deliver it? How are we going to make that visible? And just run with that. And when I watch you guys talk about what you're putting into stratapp, it pulls all those things together. You know, now you might call it OKRs, which is great, and that's, you know, as time moves on, a lot of things that the greats like Drucker created have just been renamed, and maybe they've changed a little bit of the tone around it. But that's the simplicity of it, right? So that's what excites me greatly about stratapp. Stratapp for me solves an incredibly high value problem because it's got scale, right? So it can solve a problem for a multi-billion-dollar business globally, or it can solve one for a startup, because the problems aren't consistent. And the thing I like the most about stratapp, as you guys built it, and I got a chance to sort of see it evolve, is that it gave me the ability to amplify my good days and minimize my bad days, right? Because all I knew was I'd have to have the discipline to step back into this tool, which is simply laid out. guaranteed alignment because it's acutely clear, and just offers visibility that you just can't beat. Now, if I look at the reporting lines I've had in my last sort of couple of jobs, they may have been local again, Australian only, or Australia, New Zealand, or maybe regional. If the three golden nuggets of updating people about where I'm at, what I need from them to take the business to the next step is what, so what, now what. When everyone is watching what happened daily, I'm not preparing a strategy update to an exec team or a larger team, maybe somewhere further away from the business, dragging it out of a whole bunch of systems, then putting it into a PowerPoint. Just horrifies me how analog that is, right?
I'm hearing you.
It's just unbelievable. Well, it's not dangerous, but we miss a great opportunity. So
well, it's still a universal scenario. Right? I was talking to an organisation the other day, and we are going to the extreme of enterprise, and they're still running their business on Excel spreadsheet. Right? And we're using, it's interesting because there's a generational element happening now too. Right? So the dashboards, the spreadsheets, all those things are great, but really the question is not the same data, different view. It's I want access to the source data, which is breathing, living, and people are actually moving forward at speed, right, without the leaders being in the room. Now, as a leader, I get to do two things. I actually get to work on the business and not always in the business, because if I get my head too far in the business, I do what you were saying earlier, which is I tend to actually put more work in the business than actually looking at, well, what is the business direction? Are we hitting the things that we said? And by the way, what are the challenges we're about to face to actually even go accelerated further, working on the business versus there's an action, there's a project, there's a task, there's a meeting I need to attend. We get the ability to balance both. That's the beautiful part of it. And I want to ask you a question because, Electrolux, global leader in what you do, and there's a generational, I call it Gen Now, right, of what we're seeing, which is really our kids growing up, right? They're coming into the workforce. And I was talking to a young 26-year-old South African the other day who I'm actually going to have on Spotlight later this week. And I'm really excited. And he did more work in stratapp in 1 hour than I'd seen of people do in a day.
Right.
When I spoke to him, I really wanted to understand why. And he goes, Martin, it's a framework that just gives me everything in one place. But I really don't know the definition of strategy at 26. But what this is teaching me, it doesn't need to be perfect, but I keep on learning every time I go back into the system. And I get better and better at sharpening up what that strategy should look like. But I'm a real ideas guy. I love just putting ideas in the system. And then how do I evolve those? And I thought that was really, to me, it was a really engaging conversation. Because that now gen is what it's all about, right? We all know the stats by 2025, they're going to create 75% of the workforce. So to me, that was really exciting. How are you dealing with that generational shift in relation to how do you make the plan clear, not just the plan clear, but how do you enable them with a set of tools and frameworks to help them to engage with the company?
Yeah, look, I've got to admit, this is a bit of a dawn for me. Maybe a month or so ago, we had a meeting down in Sydney, which I flew down to when things started opening back up. And I'm 47, and I've got this thing where if I don't walk past the reflective surface, I'll forget how old I am. I think I'm 22. And I walked into a meeting environment with these really smart people. And I was in there for about 15 minutes, and the ideas were fantastic, and just the energy was awesome. And I was just loving being in there. I looked around the room and I thought, wow, 47, I'm the oldest person in this room. I'm the oldest person in this room. So I think if we're all different fingers of the same hand, right? Like I'm going to bring some things with me that will help. These people that are coming into our businesses now or have been there for some years now, and they're just really starting to mature and start to really bristle. They probably bring things to the table that I don't quite comprehend, So I think if I had anything, it's pushing as much as what I've got in front of them and understanding and explaining to them why I approach things the way I do. And allowing them to sort of fill the space with how they're going to deal with it, Some amazingly smart people there.
I love that.
And one thing that excites me greatly is, I feel very lucky to be part of Electrolux. It's got some amazing things. I'm enormously proud of that we do locally, but also at a global level. 13 years in a row being the most sustainable appliance manufacturer in the world.
Yeah.
And let's say for some years in the past, that might not have meant what it means now, right? But you look at what's happening in the world as far as climate change and things. The people with the vision to drive towards that way back then, that wasn't because of a government mandate, or it wasn't because of some kind of social media pressure. It's because they're good people thinking the right things, So I must admit, I don't know if I've got the answers to help the next generation or generation now be their best, other than to make sure they've got the freedom to fill those gaps.
Yeah, love it.
And not be too anal about doing the things that I've found to be successful exactly the way I have to.
Yes, yeah. But you bring clarity, you bring communication, which is exceptionally important to that generation. I've got a scenario with one of our clients right now who the leaders were having the typical question around, we want to build the plan, we want to make it clear, we want to make it transparent. And as a leader, you want insight, right? You want oversight to all of that. What we've actually found is the onboarding of this now generation has been so powerful that within less than 24 hours, they're fully productive, because the plan was super clear. And then the work where they were working was super clear as well. And they weren't sent off to email and all these different tools to do things and share drives to create organization. They were just focused on what it is they needed to do, and they knew exactly why they were doing it.
Yeah.
And the CDO, the two founders just came to me and said, the business is moving faster than it was the past 12 months in 1 week. It's not just the visibility, but the team are just breathing. So the idea of that motivation is, how do you motivate any generation? It doesn't have to be the now generation, the way I look at the now generation, the younger generation, but how do we motivate them but really engage and enable them in a way that gets them excited? And the idea of how do we let them flourish, not just on the things we need them to do, but things that they're passionate about.
Yeah. Well, look, I guess
we get to create that space.
The speed of collaboration, their capacity to collaborate and be productive is just quite otherworldly from my perspective. Like, I still like to be in a room with people with a big problem and a whiteboard marker and a whiteboard.
Yeah.
And I love it the most when we walk in and no one has got the answers. I've sometimes I've felt like we've missed an opportunity because someone's gone, I got the answer, and everyone's like, okay. Whereas you walk in and everyone's scratching their heads, really acutely clear on how we think that outcome will look and how we're going to measure it, what we think success is going to look like, but not knowing the path to get there.
Yeah.
I enjoy that more and more in my career, and really like to get some opportunities to play, out of my depth. The old saying of bite off more than you can chew and start chewing. I've certainly been in that spot a few times. But I think one thing that I really see a lot is how, I can see on my phone on, unfortunately, disparate kind of apps, So we've got some people on email, some people on WhatsApp, some people communicating through SMS, but all of them sort of out to the four corners collaborating, If you could drag that into one thing, so as a manager who's, say, me and maybe a bit more analog, I can come in the morning and sort of see this thing that's just been boiling away, right? Because the thinking is rich. Sometimes you're not sitting in the office, especially now. People have really had their eyes open to, a guy that mentored me for a year. He was a great thinker. He used to call this your neck top computer. And you'd be sitting in a boardroom, sometimes at 2 o'clock in the morning, just trying to dive into a problem. Next morning you get up and you'll go for a walk. And he said, well, have you not got the problem right here? Because you're not going to be with the problem right here? Well, we don't need anything else. There's a change of environment. So if all those people are able to collaborate on one platform, you've got this really rich kind of thinking. And something being exposed to designers that works really taught me is it's not so much the yes or the no, it's the why. So okay, why are we thinking this way? Why are we thinking this way? Okay, there's the nut, Then let's really dive into that. So I think what stratapp has got that's really powerful is you've got a very sort of structured a way to do perhaps something that could be a little bit more sort of last century. If you want to pull it right back, be nice and simple. Here's the simplicity. Here's the plan. Here's who's doing it. There's the execution. Right. That's not really that dynamic until you put the project management piece on. Then you put the collaboration. Then you put the social piece.
Yeah.
Then you've got an ecosystem that allows all the structure from the old school to make myself and older managers feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And you've got all the dynamics that are going to get the best out of the young people as they come into the business.
Yeah, it's something I've sort of come to. There's a lot of discussion around inclusive and exclusive collaboration. Right? There's a lot of discussion around deep collaboration. Right? Not just the idea of you and I chatting on WhatsApp, and then there's actually 6 people who are impacted by that conversation.
Yeah.
Just excluded them from how to move the business forward.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get it back to them, but probably not. But you and I worked it out. You and I came up with a plan. But the idea of that element with what we've built in stratapp, and without being a self-promotion, is the idea of collaboration around what we said we needed to do and where we said we needed to go.
Yeah.
So clear. The beautiful part of the example I gave you earlier is, these are people that have been on board 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours, are actually getting their job done in one place. And it was really neat. The CEO rang me and said, you know what, I did exactly the example you just gave, Troy. They came in, they had a look at the thread, and they give a nice thumbs up, and they can participate as well, which is great. But he said I didn't need to, because there was 2 people, one in Melbourne and one in Brisbane, that actually just said, awesome job, that's fantastic, that's amazing you're doing that in such a short period. And you can just imagine the energy of that individual. They're ready to go again. Right?
Yeah.
Go again. And just that as a leader, building that simple framework for success, to me, is where we need to be. And I think we are well behind the bell curve on this discussion as leaders of our generation, because we still think structures are here, right? Where the actual structures are now down here. Seamlessly bringing those 2 together is really where the magic is. Yeah, and I personally love it, because I love seeing humans just be happy about where they're working, how they're working, and they're achieving that through the tech, which is great.
Yeah.
Mate, I just, if there's anything else, because the great conversation, and I could talk to you, and we have done countless hours, and I nearly forgot about the Singapore trip, and that was I do remember coming off the red with the laminated sheet. Again, it's what works, right? It's what works, so we understand what's new. As well. But is there anything else you can think of, maybe two or three nuggets that you're thinking of as we exit our session today?
Look, I think one of the things that most excited me about COVID, right, because you and I've talked about this specifically, it doesn't matter what's going on around you, just need to be looking for the lessons in it. If it's hard, there's a lesson. You may as well get it, because it's going to come at a cost. You may as well take the benefit. And if it's easy, take the lesson too, right? So okay, this is something great. How do we amplify it, accelerate it, or pull that up? One thing I loved, when everyone had to go home, poof, you had to be acutely focused on objectives, which I loved, because what it did for me is it reinforced my mate Pete Drucker. He had it right, So it wasn't about, John stays till 7:30 at night. Now, John's quality of work might have just tapered right off at 3. But he just wants to be seen to be the last person in the office. That's not good for John. It's also not good for the manager that leads John to be starting to think that that's an effective scorecard. Yeah. Because it's not, Yeah. So I love the fact that the objectives were the reliance. Regardless of what your job was, it forced every manager to go, well, how do we measure this now? How do we know that person's working?
Yes.
And I think it cleared a lot of stuff out of people's heads.
Yeah.
No doubt it was tough, but I mean, it wasn't a year without its highlights, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't a year without its highlights. So, but I think one of the benefits there is, learn some great lessons that, we can apply if we've got the discipline to remind ourselves of them.
Yeah.
And, it really sort of showed me and my team directly just some great talent there if you put them in a different environment, sort of different elements of them show up, So, objectives focus for me just reinforce that incredibly strong.
Yeah. No, I love it. And I also like the way you sort of tackled it's not just about embracing, it's about allowing them to work in a way that makes sense for the individual.
Yeah.
As long as they're clear on where we're going And to be honest, that's not always the case. So let's be honest, that's not always the case. Not everyone's clear. They might be clear on a task. They might be clear on something that they've got to do this week, but that doesn't motivate them to really wake up out of bed and go, let's go do this together. Let's go. That's just something I have to do. And whether it's distributed working or remote working, we've got to build that frame, that connectedness or clarity first, which is why I like the way you think, your brain works in that. And then how do we embrace everybody on that journey? I just love it. I just really enjoy it. Mate, I just want to say thank you very much for spending some time with us. We could spend another half an hour on this. I encourage you, anyone who's listening to this, please reach out to Troy as well. He'd be more than happy to spend some time with you. Jump on LinkedIn and connect with him. But Troy, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the very best.
Good on you, mate. Thanks, Marty.